Why are you pretending that your current life is working when it's clearly not? You wake up every morning to the same routine, the same problems, the same limitations, and the same excuses, yet you keep telling yourself that things will somehow magically get better. You're living a lie, and deep down you know it. The truth is, you're afraid of the work it takes to change because change requires you to admit that everything you've been doing up until now has been wrong. It requires you to face the fact that you've been settling for crumbs when you could have been eating at the banquet. It requires you to stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being the architect of your destiny. But here's what nobody wants to tell you. Comfort is the enemy of greatness, and mediocrity is a choice you make every single day. Let me tell you something that changed my life forever. There comes a moment in every person's journey when they realize that all the noise around them is drowning out their own voice. All the opinions, all the demands, all the so-called urgent matters that pull at your attention every single day. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can keep dancing to everyone else's music. Now, when I say disappear, I don't mean run away from your responsibilities. I don't mean become a hermit on some mountain somewhere. What I mean is must learn to disappear from everything that doesn't serve your highest good. You must become invisible to the distractions that keep ordinary people ordinary. Think about this for a moment. How many hours of your day are stolen by things that don't matter? How many minutes are lost to conversations that lead nowhere? How many precious moments of your life are spent responding to every ping, every notification, every person who thinks their emergency should become your emergency? The successful person learns early that attention is the most valuable currency you possess. Not money, not time. Attention, because where your attention goes, your life follows. And most people are spending their attention like drunken sailors, throwing it at whatever shines brightest in the moment. I learned this lesson the hard way. For years, I was available to everyone for everything. My phone rang, I answered. Someone needed a favor. I said yes. There was a meeting I attended. I thought I was being helpful. I thought I was being a good person. But what I was really doing was training myself to be average. You see, average people are always available. Average people always have time for other people's priorities. Average people live their lives in reaction to whatever comes at them. But successful people, truly successful people, they understand something different. They understand that to win in life. You must first disappear from the game everyone else is playing. This is not selfishness. This is strategy. The boxer doesn't train in the middle of Times Square. The writer doesn't craft their masterpiece at a cocktail party. The entrepreneur doesn't build their business while scrolling through social media. They disappear. They create their own space, their own time, their own world where they can focus on what truly matters. When you learn to disappear, something magical happens. You start to hear your own thoughts again. You start to remember what you actually want, not what everyone else thinks you should want. You begin to understand the difference between what's urgent and what's important. And slowly, gradually, you start to reclaim your life. But here's what most people get wrong about disappearing. They think it means you become antisocial. They think it means you stop caring about people. That's not it at all. When you disappear strategically, you actually become more valuable to the people who matter most. Because when you do show up, you show up fully. When you do give your time, you give your best time. When you do contribute, you contribute something worthwhile. The discipline of disappearing teaches you something else that's crucial. It teaches you that you are not responsible for managing other people's feelings about your choices. When you start saying no to things that don't serve you, some people won't like it. They've gotten used to having access to you whenever they want. They've become comfortable with your availability, but their comfort is not your responsibility. I remember when I first started practicing this discipline, people would call and say, "Jim, where have you been? We haven't seen you around." And I would simply say, "I've been working on myself." Some understood, others didn't, but that wasn't my concern. My concern was becoming the person I was capable of becoming. You must create what I call a fortress of focus around your most important work. This fortress has walls. These walls are made of boundaries. You decide who gets in and who stays out. You decide what gets your attention and what gets ignored. You decide when you're available and when you're not. Inside this fortress, magic happens. This is where you do your real work. This is where you think your real thoughts. This is where you make your real plans. The world outside may be chaos, but inside your fortress, there is clarity. There is purpose. There is progress. Now, some of you might be thinking, Jim, this sounds lonely. Let me tell you something about loneliness. Being alone with your thoughts is not loneliness. Loneliness is being in a crowd of people and feeling like none of them understand what you're trying to accomplish. Loneliness is being surrounded by noise but starving for silence. Loneliness is having your days filled with other people's priorities while your own dreams collect dust. When you disappear strategically, you're not running away from connection. You're running toward the most important connection of all. The connection with your own potential. You're creating space for the person you're becoming to emerge. You're giving yourself permission to be extraordinary, but disappearing is just the first step. Once you've created this space, once you've built this fortress, once you've learned to guard your attention like the precious resource it is, then comes the real work. And let me tell you about work. Real work. The kind of work that changes everything. Most people think they know what work is. They think work is showing up to their job 8 hours a day. They think work is being busy. They think work is having their calendar full and their email overflowing. But that's not work. That's activity. And there's a huge difference between activity and accomplishment. Real work is what happens when nobody's watching. Real work is what you do when there's no immediate reward coming. Real work is the discipline you maintain when you don't feel like maintaining it. Real work is the investment you make in yourself when nobody else believes it will pay off. I've been studying successful people for decades, and I can tell you this, they all understand the difference between motion and progress. Motion is easy. You can stay in motion all day long. You can have meetings about meeting. You can reorganize your desk 17 times. You can research and plan and prepare until you're blue in the face, but none of that is progress. Progress is what happens when you apply sustained effort to something that matters. Progress is when you take your skills and push them to the next level. Progress is when you take your knowledge and turn it into wisdom through application. Progress is when you take your dreams and turn them into plans, and your plans into reality. The successful person wakes up every morning and asks themselves one question. What is the most important thing I can do today that will move me closer to where I want to be? Not the most urgent thing, not the easiest thing, not the thing that will make everyone else happy. The most important thing, and then they do that thing. They do it when they feel like it and when they don't. They do it when it's convenient and when it's difficult. They do it when people are watching and when they're completely alone. They do it because they understand that success is not an event. Success is a process, and the process requires work. Real work. I learned this lesson early in my business career. I was working for someone else, making someone else rich, helping someone else achieve their dreams. And I was okay at it, but I wasn't great at it. You know why? Because I was doing just enough to get by. I was putting in my time, collecting my paycheck. Then one day my mentor asked me a question that changed everything. He said, Jim, if you were working for yourself, would you hire someone who worked the way you work? The question hit me like a punch to the stomach. The answer was no. I wouldn't hire me. I was giving my employer the leftovers of my energy, the scraps of my attention, the minimum of my effort. That's when I decided to change the game. I decided to work like an owner. Even though I was an employee, I started showing up early. I started staying late. I started thinking about problems after I went home. I started reading books about my industry. I started looking for ways to add more value, to solve bigger problems, to become more useful. And you know what happened? Everything changed. My income changed. My opportunities changed. My relationships changed. My entire life changed. But it didn't change because I got lucky. It changed because I changed. I changed my approach to work. Here's what I learned. Your income will rarely exceed your personal development. If you want to earn more, you must become more. You must become more. You must grow more. You must give more. And all that requires work, real work. The unsuccessful person works to avoid consequences. The successful person works to create possibilities. The unsuccessful person works because they have to. The successful person works because they choose to. The unsuccessful person sees work as what they do to survive. The successful person sees work as who they are becoming. This is why I say you must fall in love with the process, not just the outcome. The outcome might take years to achieve, but the process is available to you right now, today, this very moment. You can start working on yourself immediately. You can start investing in your future immediately. You can start becoming the person you want to be immediately. And here's the beautiful thing about real work. It compounds. Every book you read makes the next book more valuable. Every skill you develop makes learning the next skill easier. Every habit you build makes building the next habit more natural. Every day you invest in yourself makes tomorrow's investment more powerful. This is the secret that average people never learn. They think success is about one big breakthrough, one lucky break, one moment when everything changes. But successful people know better. They know that success is about small improvements compounded over time. They know that overnight success is usually about 20 years in the making. So they work when nobody's applauding. They work when nobody's paying attention. They work when the results aren't visible yet. They work because they understand that success is not about what you accomplish in any single day. Success is about what you accomplish over the span of many days, many months, many years. But then comes the part that most people struggle with. After you've disappeared from the distractions, after you've done the real work, after you've invested in yourself and grown and improved, then what? Then you must learn what it truly means to win. Most people have the wrong definition of winning. They think winning means having more money than other people. They think winning means having a bigger house, a fancier car, a more impressive title. They think winning means being recognized, being famous, being envied by others. But let me tell you what real winning looks like. Real winning is when you can look in the mirror and respect the person looking back at you. Real winning is when you've kept the promises you made to yourself. Real winning is when you've become the person you always knew you could become. Real winning is internal before it's external. It's private before it's public. It's personal before it's professional. Because the real competition isn't with other people. The real competition is with who you were yesterday. I've met wealthy people who were miserable. I've met famous people who were empty inside. I've met successful people by society's standards who felt like failures because they had achieved everything except self-respect. They had won the game everyone else was playing, but they had lost the game that mattered most, the game of becoming who they were meant to be. This is why so many people who achieve external success feel hollow afterward. They climbed the ladder, but the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. They won the prize, but it wasn't the prize they actually wanted. They got the applause, but they couldn't silence the voice inside that knew they had settled for less than their potential. True winning starts with defining what success means to you. Not what it means to your parents, not what it means to your friends, not what it means to society. What does it mean to you? What would make you proud of the life you've lived? What would make you feel like you honored the gifts you were given? For some people, winning might mean building a business that employs hundreds of people. For others, it might mean raising children who become good human beings. For some, it might mean creating art that moves people. For others, it might mean serving their community. There's no right answer. There's only your answer. But here's what I've learned about winning. It's not a destination. It's not something you achieve once and then you're done. Winning is a way of being. It's an approach to life. It's a commitment to excellence in whatever you choose to do. The person who wins consistently is the person who has learned to win the small battles first. They win the battle against the snooze button. They win the battle against procrastination. They win the battle against excuses. They win the battle against mediocrity. And all those small victories add up to something significant over time. I remember when I first started speaking professionally, I would practice my speeches in front of a mirror. I would record myself and listen back, cringing at my mistakes. I would read books about communication, study other speakers, work on my gestures, my timing, my voice. Most of this work nobody ever saw. Most of these victories were private, but every small improvement, every tiny victory, every little step forward was preparing me for something bigger. I was winning before anyone else could see it. I was becoming successful before success was visible to the outside world. This is what most people don't understand about successful people. They see the final result, but they don't see the years of invisible victories that made that result possible. They see the polished performance, but they don't see the countless hours of practice. They see the confidence, but they don't see the failures that built that confidence. Winning is about becoming comfortable with the process of improvement. It's about falling in love with getting better. It's about understanding that every expert was once a beginner. Every master was once a disaster. Every oak tree was once an acorn that held its ground. But winning also requires something else that most people struggle with: patience. We live in a world of instant everything. Instant coffee, instant messaging, instant gratification. And this has trained us to expect instant results from our efforts. But life doesn't work that way. Success doesn't work that way. The farmer plants seeds in the spring, but the harvest doesn't come until the fall. The athlete trains for years, but the championship game lasts only a few hours. The entrepreneur works in obscurity for years, but the breakthrough comes in a moment. This is the nature of winning. It requires you to keep faith with the process, even when you can't see the results yet. This is where most people give up. They work for a few weeks, a few months, maybe even a year, and when they don't see dramatic results, they quit. They conclude that success isn't for them. They decide that other people have advantages they don't. They make excuses and settle for less. But the person who truly understands winning knows that results are seasonal, but effort is year-round. They know that you plant in the spring and harvest in the fall, but you must tend the garden every day in between. They know that success is not about what happens to you. It's about what happens through you, over time, through consistent effort and unwavering commitment. And this brings us to the final element, the one that ties everything together. Repetition, because none of this works unless you're willing to do it again and again and again. Repetition is the mother of all skill. It's also the mother of all success. The things you do once don't change your life. The things you do consistently do. The question is not whether you can disappear, work, and win once. The question is whether you can do it repeatedly, systematically, as a way of life. This is where most people struggle. They think that success is about one grand gesture, one heroic effort, one moment of inspiration. But success is actually about boring consistency. It's about doing the right things over and over until they become who you are, not just what you do. The athlete doesn't go to the gym once and become strong. They go every day for years. The musician doesn't practice once and become skilled. They practice every day for decades. The entrepreneur doesn't work on their business once and become successful. They work on it every day until it becomes profitable. And then they keep working on it to keep it profitable. This is the power of repetition. It transforms effort into habit. It transforms discipline into character. It transforms temporary actions into permanent results. But most people are not willing to embrace this level of repetition because they think it will be boring. Let me tell you something about boredom. Boredom is the price of mastery. If you're not occasionally bored by your routine, you're probably not doing it consistently enough to get breakthrough results. The master is willing to be bored in private so they can be brilliant in public. I've given thousands of speeches over the years. Sometimes people ask me, Jim, don't you get tired of saying the same things over and over? And the answer is no, because I understand something about repetition that most people don't. Every time you repeat something of value, you deepen your understanding of it. Every time you practice a skill, you refine it. Every time you apply a principle, you strengthen it. The repetition is not just for the audience. The repetition is for you. It's making you better. It's making you stronger. It's making you more skilled. It's turning you into the kind of person who can consistently produce the results you want. But here's the key to making repetition work for you instead of against you. You must find ways to make it interesting. You must look for small improvements, tiny innovations, subtle refinements. You must approach each repetition not as a chore to be endured, but as an opportunity to be seized. The basketball player shooting free throws doesn't just shoot the same shot over and over. They're working on their form, their breathing, their mental approach. They're trying to make each shot slightly better than the last. They're using repetition as a tool for improvement, not just maintenance. This is how you must approach the cycle of disappear, work, win, repeat. Each time you go through it, you're not just doing the same thing over. You're doing it better. You're learning from the previous cycle. You're refining your approach. You're becoming more efficient, more effective, more skilled. The first time you disappear, it might take you weeks to figure out how to manage your boundaries effectively. The 10th time, you do it automatically. The first time you commit to real work, you might struggle with procrastination and distraction. The 100th time, focus becomes natural to you. The first time you win, you might not know how to handle success. But after multiple victories, you develop the wisdom to stay grounded and keep improving. This is why I say that success is not a destination, but a journey. It's not something you achieve once, but something you become through repetition. Every cycle makes you stronger. Every repetition makes you better. Every time you choose the difficult path over the easy one. You're building the kind of character that can handle bigger challenges and greater opportunities. And here's what happens when you truly commit to this cycle. It becomes who you are, not just what you do. Disappearing from distractions becomes natural to you. Real work becomes your default mode. Winning becomes your standard. And repetition becomes your way of ensuring that temporary success becomes... This is when life gets really interesting. This is when you stop being someone who occasionally has good days and start being someone who consistently creates value. This is when you stop being lucky and start being skilled. This is when you stop hoping for opportunities and start creating them. The person who has mastered this cycle has something that money can't buy. Unshakable confidence, not arrogance confidence. They know that no matter what challenges come their way, they have a system for handling them. They know that no matter what setbacks they face, they have a process for bouncing back. They know that no matter what goals they set, they have a method for achieving them. This confidence comes from repetition. It comes from knowing that you've done hard things before and you can do hard things again. It comes from knowing that you've overcome obstacles before and you can overcome them again. It comes from knowing that you've created success before and you can create it again. But let me be clear about something. This cycle is not magic. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not a shortcut to success. It's actually the long road. It's the difficult road. It's the road that requires you to become someone different than who you are today. Most people are looking for an easier way. They want the benefits of this cycle without the work of this cycle. They want to win without working. They want to succeed without changing. They want results without repetition. But life doesn't work that way. Success doesn't work that way. The good news is that this cycle is available to everyone. You don't need special talents. You don't need unique advantages. You don't need perfect circumstances. You just need the willingness to start and the discipline to continue. You can start today, right now. You can identify the distractions you need to disappear from. You can define the real work you need to focus on. You can clarify what winning means to you. And you can commit to repeating this process until it becomes who you are. But here's my challenge to you. Don't just think about this. Don't just agree with it. Don't just feel inspired by it. Do something about it. Take the first step. Make the first move. Begin the first cycle. Because here's what I know about life. It rewards action, not intention. It responds to what you do, not what you plan to do. It changes based on the choices you make, not the choices you think about making. The person you're capable of becoming is waiting for you on the other side of this cycle. The life you're capable of living is available to you through this process. The success you're capable of achieving is possible when you commit to this path. But none of it happens automatically. None of it happens by accident. None of it happens without your deliberate, conscious, repeated choice to disappear from what doesn't matter, work on what does matter, win in the ways that count, and repeat this process until excellence becomes your way of life. This is not just a speech. This is not just motivation. This is a blueprint. This is a system. This is a way of thinking and being that can transform your life if you're willing to apply it consistently over time. The question is not whether this works. The question is whether you'll work it. The question is not whether this cycle can create success. The question is whether you'll commit to the cycle long enough to let it work its magic in your life. Your life is waiting. Your potential is calling. Your future self is depending on the choices you make starting right now. Don't let them down. Don't settle for less than you're capable of becoming. Don't waste the gifts you've been given. The cycle starts now. Disappear, work, win, repeat, and watch as everything changes. But let me tell you something else about this cycle that most people never understand. It's not just about personal success. It's not just about what you achieve for yourself. When you truly master this way of living, you become a force for good in the world. You become someone who lifts others up simply by being who you are. Think about the people who have influenced your life the most. Were they the ones who talked the most? Were they the ones who made the biggest promises? Or were they the ones who quietly, consistently lived their values? Were they the ones who showed you what was possible through their own example? When you commit to this cycle, you become that person for others. You become living proof that ordinary people can create extraordinary results. You become evidence that dreams can become reality. You become inspiration without even trying to inspire. I've watched this happen thousands of times. Someone decides to change their life. They start small. They begin to disappear from the things that don't serve them. They commit to real work. They redefine what winning means. They repeat this process day after day, month after month, year after year, and something beautiful happens. Their children start to notice. Their spouse starts to change. Their friends begin to ask questions. Their coworkers wonder what's different about them. Without saying a word about personal development, without preaching about success, without trying to convert anyone, they become a magnet for people who want to improve their own lives. This is the ripple effect of excellence. This is the contagious nature of character. This is what happens when you stop trying to impress people and start trying to improve yourself. People are attracted to authenticity. They're drawn to consistency. They're inspired by someone who has decided to become the best version of themselves. But here's what's interesting about this influence. It doesn't come from perfection. It comes from progress. People aren't inspired by those who never struggle. They're inspired by those who struggle and keep going anyway. They're not motivated by those who never fail. They're motivated by those who fail and get back up. When you're living this cycle, you're going to have bad days. You're going to have moments when you don't want to disappear from the noise. You're going to have times when you don't feel like doing the work. You're going to experience defeats that make you question whether winning is possible. And there will be days when repetition feels impossible. But this is where character is built. This is where real strength is developed. This is where you prove to yourself that you're different from the person you used to be. Anyone can be disciplined when they feel like it. Anyone can work hard when they're motivated. Anyone can win when conditions are perfect. But the person who can do these things when conditions are difficult, that's the person who creates lasting change. I remember a period in my life when everything seemed to be going wrong. My business was struggling. My relationships were strained. My health was declining. Every day felt like an uphill battle. And I had a choice. I could abandon the principles that had brought me success, or I could trust the process even when I couldn't see the results. I chose to trust the process. I kept disappearing from the distractions even when those distractions offered temporary relief from my problems. I kept doing the work even when the work felt pointless. I kept trying to win even when losing seemed more likely. And I kept repeating this cycle even when everything in me wanted to. And you know what happened? Slowly, gradually, things began to turn around. not because I got lucky, not because circumstances changed, but because I changed. The problems that seemed insurmountable became manageable. The challenges that felt overwhelming became opportunities for growth. The setbacks that appeared to be endings became beginnings in disguise. This is the power of persistence within the cycle. This is what happens when you refuse to let temporary circumstances dictate your permanent behavior. This is why successful people often say that their greatest breakthroughs came right after their greatest breakdown. The cycle doesn't promise that life will be easy. It promises that you'll become strong enough to handle whatever life brings. It doesn't guarantee that you'll never face problems. It guarantees that you'll develop the skills to solve problems. It doesn't ensure that you'll never experience setbacks. It ensures that you'll have the resilience to bounce back from setbacks. And here's something else about this cycle that's crucial to understand. It's not about perfection. It's about direction. You don't have to disappear completely from all distractions. You just have to disappear more than you used to. You don't have to work perfectly all the time. You just have to work more consistently than before. You don't have to win every battle. You just have to win more battles than you lose. You don't have to repeat the cycle flawlessly. You just have to repeat it more often than you abandon it. Progress, not perfection. Direction, not destination. Consistency, not intensity. These are the real keys to making this cycle work in your life. Most people fail because they set impossible standards for themselves. They think they have to be perfect from day one. They think they have to transform their entire life overnight. But that's not how change works. That's not how growth happens. Real change is gradual. It's incremental. It's often invisible to the naked eye, but it's happening nonetheless. Every time you choose focus over distraction, you're changing. Every time you choose productive work over busy work, you're growing. Every time you choose long-term thinking over short-term pleasure, you're becoming someone different. The compound effect works in your favor when you understand this. Small improvements, repeated consistently over time, create dramatic results. The person who improves just 1% each day will be 37 times better after 1 year. Not 37% better, 37 times better. This is the mathematics of personal development. This is the science of success. But most people don't stick with the process long enough to see these compounding results. They want dramatic change immediately. They want to see progress every day. They want their efforts to be rewarded instantly. And when that doesn't happen, they conclude that the process isn't working. This is where wisdom becomes crucial. Wisdom is the ability to see the long-term consequences of short-term actions. Wisdom is understanding that the most important work often produces the least immediate results. Wisdom is knowing that the seeds you plant today may not produce fruit for months or years, but that doesn't make the planting any less important. The wise person plants anyway. The wise person works anyway. The wise person stays disciplined anyway, because they understand that success is not about what happens in any single day. Success is about what happens over the span of many days, consistently applied toward a worthy goal. This is why I say that success is predictable. Not guaranteed, but predictable. If you can predict your actions, you can predict your results. If you know what you're going to do tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, you can make a pretty good guess about where you'll be a year from now. Most people can't predict their actions because they don't have a system. They operate on feelings. They work when they feel like working. They focus when they feel like focusing. They push themselves when they feel motivated. But feelings are unreliable. Motivation is temporary. Inspiration comes and goes. The person who masters this cycle doesn't depend on feelings. They depend on systems. They have a system for managing their attention. They have a system for doing their work. They have a system for measuring their progress. They have a system for maintaining their discipline. And systems, unlike feelings, are reliable. When you have systems, you don't have to make decisions every day about whether to do the right thing. You just do it because that's what your system requires. You don't have to debate with yourself about whether to work on your goals. You just work on them because that's what your schedule says. You don't have to wonder whether you're making progress. You just check your system and see. This is freedom. This is what successful people understand that unsuccessful people don't. Discipline doesn't limit your freedom. Discipline creates your freedom. Systems don't restrict your life. Systems organize your life so you can accomplish more with less stress. The undisciplined person is enslaved by their moods, their impulses, their circumstances. The disciplined person is free to create the life they want regardless of their moods, their impulses, or their circumstances. They're free because they've learned to be the master of their own behavior. And this mastery, this freedom, this power over your own life, it's available to you right now. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to wait for perfect conditions. You don't have to wait for someone else to change. You can start creating the systems that will transform your life immediately. Start small. Start simple. Start today. Choose one distraction you're going to disappear from. Choose one type of work you're going to focus on. Choose one way you're going to measure winning. And choose to repeat this process tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day until it becomes, because here's the ultimate truth about this cycle. It's not really about disappearing, working, winning, and repeating. It's about becoming. It's about transformation. It's about evolving into the person you were meant to be. The actions are just the vehicle. The real destination is a life of meaning, purpose, and contribution. When you truly understand this, when you really grasp what's possible through consistent application of these principles, you realize that you're not just changing your own life. You're changing your family's life. You're changing your community's life. You're changing the world, one person at a time. This is your invitation. This is your opportunity. This is your moment to decide who you're going to become and what kind of life you're going to live. The cycle is waiting for you. Your potential is calling to you. Your future self is depending on you. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for someone else to give you permission. The time is now. The place is here. The person, disappear from what doesn't serve you. Work on what matters most. Win in the ways that count. Repeat until excellence becomes your way of life, and then watch as not only your life changes, but as you become the change that others have been waiting to see in the world. The cycle starts now. Your transformation begins today. Your legacy is being written with every choice you make. Make it count. Make it meaningful. Make it matter. The world is waiting for what you have to offer, but first, you must become the person capable of offering it. This is not just a speech. This is not just motivation. This is your roadmap to a life of significance. Use it wisely, apply it consistently. Trust the process, and prepare to be amazed by what becomes possible when you commit to becoming the best version of yourself. The cycle awaits. Your future beckons. The time is now. But before you go, let me share with you one final insight that took me years to learn. This cycle we've been talking about, it's not just a strategy for success. It's a philosophy for living. It's a way of approaching every area of your life with intention, purpose, and excellence. You see, most people compartmentalize their lives. They think success at work is separate from success at home. They believe that the principles that make them a good business person are different from the principles that make them a good parent. They assume that personal growth and professional growth are two different things, but they're wrong. Excellence is excellence. Character is character. Discipline is discipline. The same principles that will make you successful in your career will make you successful in your relationships. The same habits that will improve your financial situation will improve your health. The same mindset that will help you achieve your professional goals will help you achieve your personal dreams. When you truly understand this, when you really grasp the universal nature of these principles, you stop living a divided life. You stop being one person at work and another person at home. You stop having separate standards for different areas of your life. You become integrated. You become whole. You become someone who approaches everything with the same level of commitment and excellence. This is what I call living with integrity. And I don't just mean honesty, although that's part of it. I mean integration. Your thoughts, your words, and your actions are all aligned. Your private behavior matches your public behavior. Your daily habits support your stated values. Your short-term choices are consistent with your long-term goals. This kind of integrity doesn't happen by accident. It requires constant vigilance. It requires you to disappear from the voices that tell you it's okay to compromise. It requires you to work on character development as diligently as you work on skill development. It requires you to redefine winning to include moral victories, not just material ones. And it requires you to repeat this commitment to integrity. But here's what happens when you live this way. Life becomes simpler, not easier, but simpler. You don't have to remember which version of yourself to be in different situations. You don't have to keep track of different sets of rules for different relationships. You don't have to manage multiple personalities. You just have to be yourself, your authentic, excellent, integrated self. And people notice. They may not be able to put their finger on exactly what's different about you, but they sense it. They trust you more quickly. They rely on you more completely. They seek your advice more often because they recognize, consciously or unconsciously, that you're someone who can be counted on, someone who says what they mean and means what they say, someone whose actions match their word. This is true influence. This is real leadership, not the kind that comes from position or authority, but the kind that comes from character and consistency. The kind that makes people want to follow you not because they have to, but because they want to. The kind that inspires others to become better versions of themselves simply by being around you. I've seen this transformation happen in my own life and in the lives of countless others who have embraced this way of living. They start by focusing on personal success, but they end up creating something much more valuable. They create a legacy. They create an example. They create a standard that outlives them. Think about the people you most admire. Think about the individuals who have had the greatest positive impact on the world. Were they perfect? No. Were they consistent? Yes. Did they have everything figured out from the beginning? No. Did they keep growing and learning throughout their lives? Yes. Did they achieve success without any failures? No. Did they respond to failures in a way that made them stronger? This is what the cycle ultimately teaches you: how to respond, how to adapt, how to persist, how to grow. Not just when things are going well, but especially when things are difficult. Because life will test you. Circumstances will challenge you. People will disappoint you. Markets will crash. Relationships will end. Plans will fail. Dreams. But if you've built your life on the foundation of this cycle, if you've developed the habit of disappearing from what doesn't serve you, working on what matters most, winning in ways that count, and repeating this process consistently, then you'll have something that no external circumstance can take away from you. You'll have resilience. Resilience is not the ability to avoid problems. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from problems. It's not the capacity to prevent failure. It's the capacity to learn from failure. It's not the power to control what happens to you. It's the power to control how you respond to what happens to you. And here's the beautiful thing about resilience. Like everything else we've talked about, it's not something you're born with or without. It's something you develop through practice. Every time you choose to get back up instead of staying down, you're building resilience. Every time you choose to try again instead of giving up, you're strengthening your comeback muscle. Every time you choose to focus on solutions instead of dwelling on problems, you're training yourself to be unstoppable. This is why I believe so strongly in the power of this cycle. It's not just preparing you for success, it's preparing you for life. It's giving you the tools you need to handle whatever comes your way. It's building in you the kind of character that can weather any storm and come out stronger on the other side. But perhaps most importantly, it's connecting you to something bigger than yourself. When you live this way, when you commit to constant growth and improvement, when you dedicate yourself to becoming the best version of yourself, you're not just changing your own life. You're contributing to something larger. You're adding value to the world. You're making things better for everyone around you. This is the ultimate reward of living the cycle. Not the money you'll make, although you'll probably make more money. Not the recognition you'll receive, although you'll probably receive more recognition. Not the opportunities that will come your way, although more opportunities will probably come. The ultimate reward is the satisfaction of knowing that you've lived up to your potential, that you've honored the gifts you've been given, that you've made a difference. And that satisfaction, that sense of fulfillment, that inner peace that comes from knowing you've done your best with what you've been given, that's something no one can take away from you. That's something that doesn't depend on external circumstances. That's something that belongs to you, regardless of what the economy does, what other people think, or what challenges you face. This is the promise of the cycle. This is what awaits you on the other side of the commitment. Not perfection, but progress. Not ease, but strength. Not answers to every question, but the wisdom to ask better questions. Not a life without problems, but the ability to solve problems. Not a guarantee that everything will go your way, but the assurance that you'll be able to handle whatever doesn't go your way. So as we come to the end of our time together, let me ask you one final question. What are you going to do with what you've learned today? Are you going to file this away as interesting information? Are you going to feel inspired for a few days and then go back to your old patterns? Or are you going to take this as the blueprint it's meant to be and start building the life you've always known was possible? The choice is yours. It's always been yours. No one else can disappear from the distractions for you. No one else can do the work for you. No one else can win the victories for you. No one else can repeat the process for you. This is your life. These are your choices. This is your opportunity. But know this, if you make the commitment, if you embrace the cycle, if you decide to become the person you're capable of becoming, you won't be doing it alone. You'll be joining in a community of people who have decided that average is not enough. You'll be part of a group that believes in continuous improvement, consistent effort, and compound results. You'll be connected to others who understand that success is not a destination, but a way of traveling. The cycle is waiting for you. Your potential is calling to you. Your future self is depending on you. The time for excuses is over. The time for action has begun. The time is now.